Very good morning and welcome to the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television, the perfect show to kickstart your day, bringing you the top national, international sports and business news. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor and here are this morning's headlines. Election Commission announces a date for presidential polls, voting on 17th of July, counting on the 20th, last date for filing of nominations on 28th of June. Prime Minister to attend a two-day Shanghai Cooperation Summit in Kazakhstan. India to be formally inducted into grouping along with Pakistan. Situation in Madhya Pradesh's Mandsaur continues to be tense. State government sets up commission to ensure justified prices for farmers. Rahul Gandhi to visit. Britain votes today in the general elections, a fight between Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn. Polls in the backdrop of terror attacks in the UK. And big day for India at the French Open. Rohan Bopanna and Canadian partner Gabriela Dabrowski to play the title match in the mixed doubles. Presidential polls is our top story this morning. The Election Commission on Wednesday announced that the election for the post of president will be held on 17th of July this year. Now, announcing the election schedule, the Election Commission said that it wanted the voting process to be completed before 24th of July, the day when President Pranab Mukherjee completes his tenure. Now, according to the Election Commission announcement, votes will be counted on 20th of July. The date for issuing of notification will be 14th of June, while the last date for the filing of nominations is 28th of June. Nominations will be scrutinized on 29th of June, while the last date for the withdrawal of nomination is the 1st of July. The Commission also warned parties against issuing whips regarding the elections. Election will take place through secret ballot. Now, following the ink controversy in the Rajya Sabha polls in Haryana last year, the Election Commission has decided to use special pens for the electors to mark their votes in the 17th of July presidential election. The decision to use special pens is based on the recommendations made by a working group set up by the poll panel to suggest ways to avoid a repeat of such disputes in the future polls.
The term of office of Shri Pranab Mukherjee, President of India, is ending on 24th July. As per Article 62 of the Constitution, an election to fill the vacancy caused by the expiration of the term of office of the outgoing President is required to be completed before the expiration of the term. The Election Commission of India is mandated to ensure that the election to the office of the President of India, which is the highest elective office in the nation, must be free and fair, and the Commission is taking all necessary steps for discharging its constitutional responsibilities.
And on to the other big story. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be attending the second two-day Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Astana, the capital of Kazakhstan, today. Ahead of his visit, the Prime Minister said that he looks forward to deepening of India's association with the SCO during the summit in Astana. Pakistan will become full members of the Eurasian grouping, comprising at present China, Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. The Prime Minister said that on the completion of the process, India will become a full member of the SCO, upon which SCO will represent over 40% of humanity and nearly 20% of the global GDP. On the evening of 9th of June, Prime Minister Modi will also attend the inauguration of the Astana Expo with the theme of future energy. Remember, in the 2015 summit in Ufa in Russia, the group had formally adopted a resolution which started the procedure to admit India and Pakistan into SCO. Both the countries also signed a memorandum of obligations to join the SCO last year. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also expected to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the summit in a bid to stabilize ties.
The formal process of India joining has taken place, and as Joint Secretary mentioned, Beijing Secretariat, the Shanghai Secretariat of the organization has confirmed that it's been done. But since it's an organization, multilateral, intergovernmental organization, the decision rests with the heads of state. So heads of state are going to meet, and the heads of state are expected to formally accept India's membership.
Now, big story coming in from the Netherlands, where the International Court of Justice will today further discuss the procedure in the Kulbhushan Jadhav case with both India and Pakistan. Now, agents from both the nations will discuss the future proceedings in the case with the court's president, Ronnie Abraham. Now, India will be represented by Deepak Mittal, while Pakistan will be led by its Attorney General, Ashtar Osif Ali. Now, during the meeting, the dates for subsequent hearings and the submission of documents related to the case that India has brought against Pakistan will be discussed. Now, Pakistan is also likely to indicate its intention to nominate an ad hoc judge for the case. Now, last month, ICJ had restrained Pakistan from executing Jadhav, who had been convicted of espionage and had been sentenced to death by a Pakistani military court. The Reserve Bank of India kept the repo rate unchanged in its second bi-monthly policy for the financial year 2017-18 on Wednesday. The central bank also lowered inflation projections and maintained that the implementation of the GST is not expected to have a material impact on overall inflation. Here is a report.
No reprieve for borrowers on Wednesday as the RBI Monetary Policy Panel voted to maintain status quo on key rates. The repo rate at which RBI lends to banks was retained at 6.25%. While the cash reserve ratio, or the amount of deposits that banks park with the RBI, was kept unchanged at 4%. The RBI, however, cut the statutory liquidity ratio, the portion of bank deposits that have to be invested in government securities, by 50 basis points to 20%.
The MPC was also cognizant of several earlier enunciated risks to the medium term: rising rural wages, robust consumption demand, the imminent implementation of the 7th Pay Commission's award on HRA, and the acceptance of these by state governments, and global risks materializing in the form of imported inflation.
The RBI expects retail inflation to fall to 2 to 3.5% in the first half of current fiscal and move up to 4.5% in the second half. It also warned of the fiscal situation getting out of hand if states continue to waive farm loans and encourage inflation.
The MPC resolution says that the risk of fiscal slippages, which by and large can entail inflationary spillovers, has risen with the announcements of the large farm loan waivers. There is a risk that unless there is existing fiscal space in state government budgets or some space is found, the likelihood of going down this slippery path and dissipating the important gains that we have made in fiscal rectitude over the 2-3 years can come about.
The markets responded cautiously to the RBI's decision. The Nifty 50 closed higher by 27 points or 0.28% at 9,664, while BSE Sensex rose by 81 points to 31,271 as RBI softened hawkish tone on inflation. The RBI also underscored the need to revive private investment, restore banking sector health, and improve infrastructural bottlenecks. But for the first time, a monetary panel member differed on the policy rate decision. External member Ravindra Dholakia was not in favour of a pause in policy rate, while the other 5 voted in favour of it. Priti Mishra, Rajya Sabha TV.
Let's now get you the weather update across the country. In Assam, over 1 lakh people were affected by floods in Lakhimpur and Karimganj districts, while the 4 rivers of the state are flowing above the danger mark. Now, as per the Assam State Disaster Management Authority, over 1 lakh people are reeling due to floods in these 2 districts, whereas 140 villages are underwater. Karimganj is the worst affected, with nearly over 97,000 people, while more than 4,500 people were hit in Lakhimpur. Now, currently, all the 4 rivers are flowing above the danger mark across the state, including the Hansiri, Barakakatakhal and Kushiara. The calamity has also damaged crops in close to 400 hectares of land. Meanwhile, in the national capital, there was some respite from the scorching heat after light rains accompanied with winds lowered the temperatures considerably. IMD has also predicted 98% rainfall forecast over the northwest India, including Uttar Pradesh, Haryana and Delhi.
सिचुएशन इन असम अब तक पूरा कंट्रोल में है. 3 डिस्ट्रिक्ट लखीमपुर, करीमगंज एंड दरंग, these are the 3 districts. थोड़ा कुछ एरिया इनको अफेक्टेड हुआ है. टोटल 92 villages of the 3 districts affected, and already 1 relief can has been opened. There is a small relief can, and so far landslide ये डिमा हासाम में थोड़ा कुछ लैंडस्लाइड हो रहा है.
এতিয়া যেটো বান দিলে এই বানটোৰ কাৰণে এতিয়া এইটো পানী বেছি হৈছে, নহলে আগৰ পৰা পানী হৈ থাকে ইয়াত, কিন্তু ইয়াতকে কম হয়, এতিয়া এই বছৰ বেছি হৈছে.
23 workers were charred to death and 7 others were injured after a fire broke out in a cracker factory in Balaghat district of Madhya Pradesh. And the blaze started at around 3 p.m. on Wednesday in a factory. According to Balaghat authorities, out of the 10 workers injured in the incident initially, 3 died on their way to Nagpur. Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan has announced a compensation of 2 lakh rupees each to the next of the kin of those deceased. The state government would also bear the medical expenses of the injured. Meanwhile, a magisterial inquiry has also been ordered into the incident.
सेफ्टी के उपाय थे कि नहीं, कितने मजदूर लगा सकते थे, सारे सुरक्षा के प्रबंध थे कि नहीं, और जितने की इनको विस्फोटक रखने की अनुमति थी उतनी था कि ज़्यादा था, ये जांच के विषय हैं जो जांच के बाद.
जब 3:30 बजे की घटना विस्फोट हुआ है, किस प्रकार से विस्फोट हुआ, अभी जो घायल लोग हैं उनसे पूछताछ करके करेंगे.
Let's now get you an update on the farmers' unrest. And as the protest in Maharashtra entered its 7th day on Wednesday, soaring prices of vegetables and fruits in Mumbai and some other cities are slowly getting stabilized with increased inflow of agricultural produce. A state convention of farmers has been called in Nashik today. The meeting has been convened by the Kisan Kranti Morcha. Now, as per reports, a substantial inflow of vegetables and fruits in Pune, Navi Mumbai and Vashi agricultural produce market committees has stabilized their prices. Now, days after business remained subdued due to protests and shortage of supply, the Nashik KPMC received 64 quintal of vegetables. Meanwhile, the Shiv Sena boycotted a cabinet meeting called by Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis on Wednesday. The party instead sought a clarification from Fadnavis over the loan waiver issue. Sena President Uddhav Thackeray ridiculed the government's offer of holding talks only with the true farmer leaders.
कर्ज माफी की जो योजना तैयार होगी उसमें शिवसेना को साथ में लेकर ही बातें हम मंजूर कर सकते हैं. शिवसेना के पक्ष प्रमुख उद्धव जी ठाकरे की जानकारी बिना कोई बात नहीं हो सकती. हम उनकी जो सम्मति है वो लेकर के आगे जाएंगे.
Meanwhile, in Madhya Pradesh, the farmers' agitation intensified on Wednesday with angry protesters indulging in arson. Now, public property was also vandalized. Despite curfew and suspended mobile internet services, the protest was widespread. And as the political row over the protest is gaining heat, Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi and JDU leader Sharad Yadav are likely to visit Mandsaur today.
The situation in MP's Mandsaur remained volatile on Wednesday, with farmers resorting to violence and arson despite curfew and prohibitory measures. Cellular services remain suspended in Ratlam, Neemaj, Mandsaur and Ujjain. The protesting farmers set ablaze 8 to 10 vehicles. The centre rushed 1,100 personnel of the Anti-Riot Rapid Action Force. Meanwhile, the statewide Bandh called by different parties and organizations has evoked mixed response.
किसानों के हित में जो मांगे हैं, किसानों के खाद बीज नहीं मिल रहा है, फसलें 2 रुपए किलो खरीदी जा रही है, प्याज नहीं बिक रहा है, किसानों की जो दुर्दशा हो रही है, किसानों की जो अभी हत्या हुई है, किसान जो हमारे जिनकी किसानों की हत्या की उसके संबंध में हम उनके सरकार के खिलाफ ये प्रदर्शन कर रहे हैं और उनकी जब तक मांगे पूरी नहीं होंगी, जब तक हम ऐसे ही प्रदर्शन करते रहेंगे और इससे भी उग्र प्रदर्शन करेंगे.
माननीय मुख्यमंत्री अपने आप को कृषि पुत्र, कृषक का बेटा कहते हैं. शर्म आनी चाहिए. कोई कृषक क्या किसी को गोली मारेगा? कोई मारेगा क्या? बताएं. हम किसान हैं, हम किसानों का दुख दर्द जानते हैं, इसलिए सड़क पे खड़े हुए हैं. हम खुद किसान हैं, इसलिए ये आंदोलन कर रहे हैं. क्यों? कि हमें हमारी खून पसीने की कमाई का कुछ भी नहीं मिल रहा.
कृषि के क्षेत्र में किसानों के हित में एक नहीं अनेक योजनाएं बनाई है. भारत सरकार और केंद्र सरकार के साथ साथ राज्य सरकार से जो योजनाएं बनी है उसमें किसानों के हित संरक्षण की बहुत सारी योजनाएं और उनको लाभान्वित किया जा रहा है। सर्वाधिक हितैषी अगर कोई है किसानों के तो शिवराज सिंह जी है। दुखद घटना हुई है मंदसौर में, नहीं होना चाहिए। मालवा के किसान हमेशा से शांत प्रिय रहे हैं।
Farmers who have been demanding debt relief and better prices for their crops since June 1st heckled Mandsaur collector and a superintendent of police when they tried to pacify them. The agitators are also demanding a visit from Chief Minister to Mandsaur.
इनको आश्वासन दिया है टीआई के विरुद्ध कड़ी से कड़ी कार्रवाई की जाएगी, है ना, और कोई भी आदेश नहीं था गोली चलाने का।
Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan has announced certain measures, including a loan settlement scheme for those cultivators who had defaulted on repayment of farm loan. He also announced a compensation of 1 crore rupees each for the next of the kin of the 6 farmers who were killed in firing and a government job for their family members. Chauhan has also ordered judicial inquiry into the matter. The blame game over the incident is on, with Union Minister M. Venkaiah Naidu blaming the Congress for instigating farmers and the opposition party holding the government responsible for farmers' plight.
मध्य प्रदेश में मंदसौर इलाका में फायरिंग के कारण से किसान मर गए, ये बहुत दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण बात है। कांग्रेस वाले इसको राजनीतिक रूप देके वहाँ हिंसा को प्रेरेपित करने के लिए प्रयास किया, फिर दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण अभी 4 लोग या 5 लोग का जान गए। ये दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण है, इसके ऊपर जांच होगा, मगर आई ओनली टेल द कांग्रेस पार्टी प्लीज डोंट पॉलिटिकलाइज।
हमेशा बीजेपी की राजनीतिक रणनीति रहती है कि जहां वे कोई जवाब नहीं दे पाए, जहां वो कोई सफाई नहीं दे पाते, ये कहते हैं ये विरोधी दल इसका कर रहे हैं। आज देश का आम किसान, अन्नदाता किसी एक विशेष पार्टी से नहीं जुड़ा, वो अपने हितों की रक्षा कर रहा है।
का मैसेकर किसान का ये 5 की 6 की संख्या दे रहे हैं। मैं मानता हूं वहां ज्यादा लोग गोली के और संख्या ज्यादा है मृतकों की, और आंख मिचोली कर रहे हैं। पहले 10 लाख फिर 1 करोड़, यानी किसी तरह से भी किसान के मुद्दों को दबाना चाहते हैं। हम लोग भी सोच रहे हैं कि जो किसानों के ऊपर एक तरह से बर्बर हमला हुआ है, इसका प्रतिकार करने के लिए हम लोग भी जाएंगे।
Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi and JDU leader Sharad Yadav are likely to visit Mandsaur today to meet the kin of those killed in the violence on Tuesday. Considering the tensions prevailing there, rail traffic through Mandsaur station also came to a halt. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now let's get you some international news. And North Korea launched a series of what appeared to be surface-to-ship missiles today. According to South Korea's defense ministry, the launch took place from the vicinity of Wonsan, Gangwon province. Now it would be the 4th missile test by the nuclear-armed regime in less than 5 weeks as Pyongyang continues to defy UN warnings and US threats of possible military action. The United Nations Security Council had last Friday unanimously adopted a US-drafted resolution imposing a new target sanctions on a handful of North Korean officials and entities in response to a series of ballistic missile tests this year that are banned under UN resolutions. Early last month, the North also test-fired what appeared to be its longest-range ballistic missile yet tested in a bid to bring the US mainland within reach. The US military has said that it has successfully intercepted an intercontinental ballistic missile target in a test conducted amid concerns over North's weapons program. And millions of people will be casting their votes in the UK general election today. Polls will open at more than 40,000 polling stations across the country, with the counting starting once voting ends on Friday. Around 50 million Britons are eligible to vote in the general election, which is being held against the backdrop of terror attacks recently in the country. Now, this is up from the last general election in which there were 46.4 million registered voters in 2015. For the election to produce a majority government, the biggest party theoretically must win at least 326 seats out of the 650 regional constituencies. Now, most polling stations are in schools, community centres as well as halls. Meanwhile, Parliament was officially dissolved on the 2nd of May after Prime Minister Theresa May decided to call snap polls.
I think he has a faint chance, but I still predict Theresa May has probably get a majority of 50 or so. But who knows? I mean, the polls are all over the place. This latest this latest terrorist attack, who knows whether that plays to Corbyn's advantage or Theresa May's?
I think Theresa May's got a bit of a shock. I think she assumed that if she played on personalities that compared to Corbyn, she would be a shoo-in. And I think actually Corbyn has run a surprisingly competent campaign.
I don't know, with the two leaders it's a bit of a best of a bad bunch, really. I think Theresa May's have a difficult one because obviously I'm only going to talk about Theresa and Corbyn because I think they're the only two that are in the runners. She's had a bit of a difficult job. This is her chance, I suppose, to be elected in, but even so, it's a short notice. I don't know. As for Corbyn, he doesn't really do it for me.
The question is, who do you trust to have the strong and stable leadership to get the best deal for Britain in Europe? Because Brexit matters. It is the basis for everything else.
And as we now prepare for government, we can already say we've changed that debate. And given people hope it doesn't have to be like this. Inequality can and will be tackled. Hope that austerity can be ended, that we can stand up to the elites and to the cynics. Hope that we can give our health service, our schools, our police, our social care the money they need and deserve, and need it now.
News from the Middle East, and the worst crisis in decades among the Gulf's Arab states intensified on Wednesday, with the Saudi-led alliance imposing more punitive sanctions against Qatar. Now, the UAE said that it would no longer grant visas on arrival for foreigners living in Qatar, while Qatari nationals will be barred from transiting through the country. Also, UAE residents who express support or sympathy for Qatar could face a jail term of up to 15 years. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump called Qatar's emir on Wednesday and offered help to resolve the damaging feud. Qatar diplomatic crisis continues to reverberate across the Middle East. Increased efforts are on by Arab powers to isolate the Gulf state. At the UAE airports, Qataris will no longer be allowed to land or catch connecting flights. The UAE also said on Wednesday that anyone expressing sympathy for Qatar could face up to 15 years in prison. However, the country made it clear that the punitive actions were not aimed at overthrowing its regime. Several countries, including the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain and Egypt, cut to travel and diplomatic links with Qatar on Monday. Several other nations, Maldives, West African nations of and Mauritania also followed suit. They insist that Qatar must cut ties with terrorist groups.
What we're hoping is that our action will actually, send, some sense into the decision makers in Qatar, where they would come and see that their overall interest is not in undermining their neighbors, but in supporting their neighbors and working with them. We hope that cooler heads will prevail, wiser heads will prevail, and we will not get to that. But of course, if we have to, these are all entanglements that we have to deal with as the crisis develops, and create solutions to them. And this is, I think, this will be a very, very sad course that we need to take. But I am hoping that cooler heads will prevail in Qatar.
Meanwhile, there is an apparent act of support for Qatar by Iran and Turkey. Turkey has approved a bill allowing more troops to be based in Qatar and to take part in joint training exercises. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan says isolating Qatar would not resolve any problem. Turkey and Iran are also planning to airlift and water into the country as supplies run low. US President Donald Trump spoke to Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani on phone and offered a possible White House meeting to help resolve the crisis. This comes after Trump on Tuesday in a series of tweets accused Qatar of funding terrorism.
The United States continues to be in close communication with all the parties to resolve the issues and restore cooperation, which is so important to regional security there. I think that there is note that his message of toughness on terror finance and extremism is being heeded by countries in the region. But the U.S. still wants to see this issue de-escalated and resolved immediately, keeping with the principles that the President laid out in terms of defeating terror financing and extremism.
Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the UAE and Bahrain announced on Monday that they were cutting diplomatic ties and closing air, sea and land links with Qatar, giving Qataris within their borders 2 weeks to leave. They accuse Qatar of supporting extremist groups, claims that Doha strongly rejects. The dispute has sparked the worst diplomatic crisis in the Arab world in years and raised fears that it will cause further instability in an already volatile region. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. And good news for India at the French Open because India's Rohan Bopanna and his Canadian partner Gabriela Dabrowski entered the final in mixed doubles event. The 7-seeded duo of Bopanna-Dabrowski defeated Andrea Lavakova and Edward Roger Vasselin 7-5, 6-3 in the semi-final match. The Indian-Canadian pair will now play the title match against the pair of Robert Farah and Anna-Lena Kroenfeld. Meanwhile, in the men's singles, Dominic Thiem stunned defending champion Novak Djokovic to set up a semi-final clash against Rafael Nadal. 6th-seed Thiem blasted 38 winners in his 7-6, 6-3, 6-0 victory over the world number 2. Meanwhile, 9 times champion Nadal, on the other hand, got entry into the last 4 after fellow Spaniard Pablo Carrero Busta quit with an injury. Meanwhile, in the other quarterfinals, Andy Murray reached his 4th consecutive French Open semi-final with a 4-set win over Kei Nishikori. The world number 1 came through 2-6, 6-1, 7-6, 6-1 against the Japanese 8th seed. Murray will now face Swiss 3rd seed Stan Wawrinka, who beat Marin Cilic 6-3, 6-3, 6-1 to reach the last 4. Meanwhile, in the women's singles, 3rd seed Simona Halep saved a match point before going on to beat Elina Svitolina 3-6, 7-6, 6-0 in the quarterfinals. Halep will play Karolina Pliskova in the last 4 after the 2nd seed beat Carolina Garcia 7-6, 6-4 in the other quarterfinal. Well, that's it from me and my team in this edition of news. Thanks for watching.